Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today for our Meal Solution Mondays class. My name is Charlotte Scheid. I'm one of the Giant Company dietitians. So for those of you who are back for another class, thank you for joining. And for those of you who are new, we're so excited to have you here. So our Meal Solution Mondays class focuses on flyer to fork. So what that means is that for our weekly ad, as a dietitian, we look through it from a dietitian's perspective, pick out some ingredients, and then come up with a better for you recipe. So for today, well, we're going to be making a vegetarian stuffed pepper. But here's what we're going to go over today. So first, we're going to discuss how to find the weekly ad, finding a recipe with savory. If nobody has been to the Savory magazine or Savory Recipe Center, there's a variety of different ways to filter and search. You can see there's my oven ready to go for our recipe today if you heard that beeping. But we're going to show you how to find a recipe with savory and then bringing it to life. So again, we're going to be making a vegetarian stuffed bell pepper. I think with the flyer to fork, we have had a lot of like chicken recipes, meat recipes, but today I wanted to do more of a kind of vegetarian stuffed bell peppers, which there's a variety of different ways. Even if you wanted to include meat in it, you can definitely do so. We're going to be doing a vegetarian stuffed bell pepper, which is going to be super delicious. So first, how to find the weekly ad. So a variety of different ways. I will say for myself, I definitely like to look at it from a paper perspective or paper copy, but I always like to view it on our app as well. So there's a variety of different ways, no matter what your preference is. So the first one being in your mailbox. So if you have a community newspaper, usually it's kind of stuffed in there. The weekly ad in the paper form, you can, of course, the next time you're grocery shopping, you can find it in our stores. So you walk in the entrance, it's right there. You can find it on our website, which is pretty convenient. And if you have the app downloaded, you can find it there as well. So again, a variety of different ways to find the weekly ad, no matter what your preference is. So this is the Giant Morton's website where you can, of course, view the weekly ads. You can see here I put an arrow where you want to click, and you can view the weekly ad either in a grid form where you can search to see if different products are on a bonus buy or savings, or you can pull it up as a PDF, viewing it as you would a paper copy. So you can, of course, view it on the website and then, of course, on the app, which because I do, like giant direct orders on the app, sometimes it's just really easy to, as you're doing that, also look at the weekly ad as well. But you can see here, if you do pull up the app, you're going to scroll down, click on save, and then it will pull it up, print form or grid view as well. So a variety of different ways to view the weekly ad. If you've never done so before, I would highly encourage you to do so because we always have every week we have really good stuff, either bonus buy savings, but especially with Valentine's coming up, which I cannot believe that Valentine's Day is almost here, but a lot of good stuff in this week's ad. So these are, as I was looking through the weekly ad, what I mentioned before, I definitely wanted to do more of like a vegetarian kind of inspired recipe, but so I pulled out these ingredients that are in the weekly ad for this week. So the first one being our brand rainbow bell peppers. So you can see here. So these come in, well, obviously because it's a rainbow, it's going to come in different colors. So there's either the rainbow bell peppers or there's also another one where if you buy the individual bell peppers, there's also a savings on that as well. So you can do either one. But our brand rainbow bell peppers in the weekly ad, also salsa, guacamole, or queso. So guacamole is going to be one of our things that we're going to top our vegetarian stuffed pepper with. Another thing that's also in the weekly ad is just plain avocado as well. So you can always chop that up and put it as a topping, but we're going to use guacamole on the topping on our vegetarian stuffed bell pepper. Also, one of our ingredients, a yellow onion, is in there, and our brand salsa, which we have pico de gallo, which is another great topping for our recipe for today. So as I was wanted to do a vegetarian inspired recipe. Obviously love guacamole. Bell peppers are a good one. I decided to choose these different ingredients and products. So I mentioned about savory. So for those of you who are new here or you have not, even if you have been here before, maybe have not gone on to Savory. Savory is a really nice resource that we have. So we have the Savory magazine, which you can always find that in store, online and view that. But also we have a recipe database where you can filter and search based on a variety of different ways. So you can see here on the left-hand side, you can always put in ingredients that you like, don't like, and there's even advanced filters on maybe how many guiding stars that it has, what meal you want to search for, like breakfast or dinner. So a variety of different ways to search for, different recipes. But I decided to search bell peppers and then guacamole because I found those ingredients in our products in our weekly ad. So I searched for that, and this is what came up, which is a vegetarian stuffed bell peppers, which normally in the past with our family, I tended to like to, cook stuffed bell peppers, but this again gives, a vegetarian twist to it. So we're using, yeah, quinoa, beans, and that type of thing. So this is what we're going to be making today. But you can see here also that popped up air fryer quesadilla with salsa stuffed peppers, steak and pepper fajitas, which is a good one, chicken fajita rice bowl. So those are just a couple of the many different recipes that are in there, but also pulled up for the bell peppers and guacamole search. So again, if you feel like you're stuck in a rut, definitely go on the Savory Recipe Center to search for some yummy recipes. So this is our great recipe that we're making today. So vegetarian stuffed bell peppers. It does get 2 guiding stars. So for those of you who do not know what guiding stars is, it's a nutritional navigation program, either on recipes on Savory or products in store. So the more stars that something gets, the more nutritionally beneficial it is. So more vitamins, minerals, healthy fats, fiber, and less of the ingredients or nutrition. What am I trying to say? Less of the stuff that we don't want as much of, like saturated fat, added sugar, those types of things. But this recipe gets 2 guiding stars, but it can go up to 3. So 1, 2, or 3 stars for the guiding stars program. So for this recipe, it serves 4. It's a nice balanced meal, although you can always add some sides to it as well. It's also really great for batch cooking, which we'll discuss here in a little bit. But it does get 12 grams of fiber per serving and then 18 grams of protein. So one thing that I did before class, I just want to mention, which we'll go over the directions in the next slide. So for the bell peppers, I did already pre-boil them before class. Should just want to mention that because that was one step I wanted to get out of the way. But also the ingredients we're going to be mixing in our bowl: 1 small onion, some cooked quinoa, which I already did cook the quinoa, so about 1 1/3 cup of quinoa. So the quinoa I use the organic tri-color quinoa. So just want to mention this because I made the whole bag, which dry gave around like 2 cups or so, but it really, quinoa, when you cook it, it bulks up. So I have leftover quinoa, and so I'm using some for this recipe today. But my point is that I'm going to put the rest in the refrigerator, and then I can use it throughout the week for different recipes. So again, great for batch cooking if you just want to make the whole bag ahead of time. But we're going to be using some of it, for the vegetarian stuffed bell peppers. So we're also going to be mixing in some kidney beans, fire roasted diced tomatoes, which give a nice grilled kind of charred taste to the stuffed bell pepper. Some frozen corn kernels, which I thawed, but you can also use a can of corn, fresh corn. I don't know if you can find a lot of fresh corn right now, but canned, frozen, it all fits, and you can use it in the recipe, whatever you have in stock in your house. Also, we're going to be using some cumin, smoked paprika. Even if you want to add a little bit of more heat to this, you could always add some chili powder. But we're mixing that in our bowl. You can, of course, put a little salt and pepper in it, but you don't have to. And then, the Monterey Jack cheese, and then pico de gallo guacamole, chopped green onion as some toppings. But we'll go over that in a little bit. So that's our recipe, and definitely not too hard to make, but again, 12 grams of fiber, 18 grams of protein. And I just went over kind of these directions anyways, but you probably heard in the beginning of this class, my oven did go off, so I preheated my oven to 400. I did, before class, already half and remove the seeds from each bell pepper, and I did boil them. The other option that you could do, if you don't want to boil each pepper half, you can, just as the pepper half, put them in the oven for about 15 minutes to soften them up. But for me, when I made stuffed bell peppers in the past, I have just boiled them, and that kind of tends to soften them up, which is pretty easy. And then the other thing I did before class too, you can either grate the onion or chop the onion. So I just finely chopped it as well. The other thing I wanted to mention too, even if you don't like chopping onions, you don't like the smell on your hands, in our produce department, we already have pre-cut diced onions. So you can always buy that ahead of time, kind of saves you a step with chopping it up, but I already did that as well. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with this recipe. But like what I said before, very simple to make, but just want to tell you some steps I did before class. Alrighty. All right, so like what I mentioned before, I have already preheated my oven to 400. So I have in my bowl, so this is a microwave safe bowl. So when we add our ingredients, we're going to microwave it for about 3 to 4. I would say probably I did beforehand, yeah, 3 minutes with the other batch that I cooked before class. But I have a cup and a third of quinoa right here. So I think quinoa is a really nice whole grain. So you can see right here, the texture is very fluffy. You can use other grains in this recipe if you wanted to, like brown rice. So quinoa will have a little bit more protein and fiber, but you can use brown rice. I think brown rice would have more of like like a different texture, not as fluffy, maybe a little bit chewier. So I have a cup and a third here. I'm going to add in a cup and a half of my thawed frozen corn. I'm just going to add that in. I already chopped up my onion, but like what I said before, you can always buy this already chopped in our produce department. So you can see here, I'm going to chop that up. So this is just one small onion. All right, we're also going to do the fire roasted tomatoes. So I don't know if anybody has used fire roasted tomatoes, but they add kind of a nice heat to it, but also kind of adds like a grilled char sort of taste, or yeah, taste on the tomatoes. I don't know if you can see that or not, but they have kind of charred markings right here. All right, so we're going to add that in. Also going to add in a teaspoon of smoked paprika, so it gives a nice smoky taste to it. If you don't like the smoked paprika, you can always eliminate it, or you could put in, some other flavorings as well. So let's do 1 teaspoon. I'm also going to do 1 teaspoon of cumin. If you want to add some heat, like what I mentioned before, you could add some chili powder. This is our ground cumin, so we're going to do 1 teaspoon. And you can add some salt and pepper if you want, but I think this has enough flavor that you don't really need that. You can, of course, add that if you want to. All right, so let me just make sure I have all my ingredients. So the onion, cooked quinoa, oh, and also our kidney beans. So this is low sodium kidney beans. Add some more of that protein and fiber. You can use a lot of different, or whatever beans that you have in stock. So I have kidney beans. You could use pinto beans, cannellini beans, black beans, whatever that you would like. I think anything would fit in this recipe. All right, so I have my ingredients in here and giving it a good mix. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put plastic wrap on this and vent it. We're going to put it in the microwave for about 3 minutes or so. So let me go ahead and put this plastic wrap on. And we're also going to vent it as well. Wait, I'm just going to put this right on top. And then I have a knife over here. I'm just going to put maybe a couple slits or cuts to kind of vent it. So it doesn't have to be too big, but just a couple. Right, so I'm going to put this in the microwave for about 3 minutes or so. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so that is cooking. So I think what's nice about so by microwaving it, it really helps with the heat to kind of blend the flavors a little bit. So what I mentioned before, so let me bring this making casserole dish over. So like what I mentioned before, I already boiled my peppers. So you can see here and I took out the seeds and the white part. Sometimes if you leave those in, they have like a little bit of a bitter kind of taste. So you can Let me actually pick one of these up. So I boiled them for about 2, maybe 3 minutes or so, but you don't want to do it too long or then the pepper becomes a little bit mushy. So you can see right here. So the rainbow bell peppers offer a really nice variety of different colors. So you can see right here, I'll pull up the packaging again, which are in the weekly ad. And the and what's nice about the different colors of the bell peppers is that they give a lot of great benefits. So what I want to mention too, so these red bell peppers are most likely the sweetest, so they tend to be more sweet. All the bell peppers actually have 2 times or even more the amount of vitamin C compared to an orange, which I think is really interesting, especially this time of year with immune health. We always want to keep ourselves healthy. So bell peppers, no matter the color, are a really good source of vitamin C, which I think is a fun fact as well. The other thing that red bell peppers have too is a good source of lycopene, which is an antioxidant, which is really important for heart health. So if you don't have bell peppers into your eating routine, or maybe you're just kind of, don't think about them too much, especially with this time of year, what I mentioned, definitely give them a try because they are, have a lot of antioxidants in them, but definitely that vitamin C, which I think surprises people. Usually people think citrus fruits have, which they do have vitamin C, but bell peppers even more. So definitely keep that in mind. All right, so we have about 30 seconds or so on our mixture. So once that's out, what I'm going to do is scoop into each half, maybe like a half of a cup or so of the mixture. And then what you do after that, you cover it, bake it for 25 minutes, take it out, and then you put on some Monterey Jack cheese right on top. But of course, you can use any cheese that you want. The recipe calls for Monterey Jack cheese. You can, of course, use cheddar cheese, mozzarella cheese, Colby Jack cheese, whatever you're in the mood for. But I definitely like Monterey Jack cheese. I think is really good. And then when you put that cheese on, you put it back in the oven uncovered for about 10 minutes or so until it melts. All right, so let me go ahead and get my mixture out of the microwave about 8 seconds or so. So let me actually move some dishes out of the way. Get my spoon here ready. All right, so let me go grab that mixture, of course, carefully because it could be hot. All right, so not too hot. But again, microwaving it about 3 minutes helps, I think, always blend the flavors even more. If you can see that or not, see that steam coming off when we close the microwave. All right, so for each half, you pour probably about like half a cup or so, but you want to do it just until, it's filled pretty well. Let me give this a good stir. But what the recipe does mention is that so you can see this, when you do put it in the half, you want to kind of press it down so it's packed down. So we're just going to kind of pack it down. All right. So I think also for this, even if you don't like, or you don't want maybe like a vegetarian, you want something that's kind of a vegetarian stuffed pepper, you of course want to include beans and whatnot, but you can also, if you want to include meat, you can. You can include ground turkey, you could do ground chicken, even you can probably even do like, if you want to do like a turkey sausage or so, if you're looking for kind of a different flavor. But if you do add some meat, I would probably do maybe half or like, a little less of the beans or maybe half the amount of quinoa for this recipe and then substitute that with the meat. Because I know with stuffed pepper, sometimes people just like the meat, which is fine, but you can always kind of substitute in different ways. I just wanted to mention that. All right. So again, filling these halves, about half a cup or so. All right. So what I'm going to do after I fill these up is I'm going to cover it with some aluminum foil. And actually try to put a little bit more topping on these. These bell peppers were probably like a medium size. Just have like a little bit of the filling left over, which is perfectly fine. Okay, so you can see here, so I filled them about a half cup or so. This is looking super delicious. So I'm just gonna cover it with some aluminum foil. And then you want to bake it at 400 for about 15 minutes. Not 15 minutes, I'm sorry, 25 minutes. All right, so let's cover this. So I'm going to put this in the oven at 400 for 25 minutes. Let me go ahead and do that. All right, so like what I mentioned before, so you're gonna put that in for 25 minutes, take it out, uncover it. Then you want to put some of this Monterey Jack cheese or whatever cheese that you're in the mood for, like cheddar cheese, Colby Jack cheese. So you want to put this in, put this on the stuffed bell peppers, then back in the oven for about 10 minutes or so, just until it's melted. You can see here, so I made a batch before class. You can see here, these are my yummy vegetarian stuffed peppers. And then you can add whatever toppings that you want. So the recipe suggests you can do green onions, guacamole, salsa, pico de gallo. So because this is in the weekly ad, so I'm going to do some pico de gallo. So right on top. You can always get to like more like the spicy pico de gallo or guacamole to even add. I keep talking about spice. I always like, maybe a little bit of spice to get some flavor. But I always like pico de gallo too. So this one, I believe is, yep, this is the mild one, but does come in medium as well. So for those of you who do not know kind of what pico de gallo, so it has tomatoes, green bell peppers, red onion, cucumber, red bell pepper, cilantro, some tomato juice, a lot of great flavor with this. So we're just going to top this one on here. I'm going to leave one of them plain. And then we'll get this off. I'm going to do some guacamole. And again, the other thing that you can do, because avocados are in the weekly ad for this week, you can always do chopped up avocado as well, which is nice. All right, so here are our vegetarian stuffed bell peppers. We have one with the pico de gallo, one with yummy guacamole, and then just one plain, because maybe you just don't want a topping. All right. So this is a wonderful recipe. You can see not too hard to make, very, very simple. And again, when you're making the quinoa ahead of time, if you make the whole bag, you can use it for batch cooking and use it throughout the week. So you can always use that for meal prep. All right, so I hope this gives everybody a great recipe for the weekly ad for this week. So we're going to move along to the weekly ad dietitian's pick. So with that, I'm going to stop recording and we will move along to the weekly ad picks and then the Q&A.